Here we go. Yet again, Crunchyroll has found itself in legal hot water when it comes to allegedly submitting personal information of its users to third parties. Yes, for those that missed it, about 3 years ago, there was this whole lawsuit that was lodged on Crunchyroll for selling personal information to, I believe it was different third parties, including Facebook. And unfortunately, let's not beat around the bush here. This is common practice amongst all companies online. Any company that you go to, any website you go to, they're grabbing your digital information, like your device, it's grabbing your emails, it's grabbing everything, and it's selling it to other people. It's just, unfortunately for big companies like Crunchyroll, that makes you a big target for lawyers to make a quick buck. And as we've seen with the last time that they had this whole lawsuit in 2023, with that whole situation, that actually got settled in court by Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll, settled with the actual lawyers. They came to an agreement. They didn't admit to anything. They just came to an agreement that they're going to pay a bunch of money, which is, yes, sort of in a way admitting guilt, but in a way it's really just trying to make it cost them less. Rather than go through a legal battle for a long time, let's just settle, pay this much, and let's just be done with it. And what resulted in that is, what was it, like $30 per user? Like, each individual that was actually being affected by this was getting $30. It was like, it's always like this element of like, I want them to be held accountable. The lawyers are technically doing that, but in the end, it's just filling lawyers' pockets. And we'll see if this is going to be another case of that. But yes, this is reported by animecorner.me. Definitely go check them out. They do some great coverage of anime, anything that's breaking in anime in Japan. They do a great job of it. But they reported Crunchyroll hit with class action lawsuit over allegedly disclosing anime viewing habits to third party. They say major anime streaming platform Crunchyroll has been hit with a class action lawsuit for alleged violations of the Video Privacy Protection Act. Plaintiffs argue that without consumer consent, Crunchyroll knowingly disclosed personal identifiable information to a third party, such as email address, device ID, and anime titles streamed on the platform. That last part, I think, is where it starts to get a little bit more uncomfortable, in my opinion. But anyways, we'll get into it in a minute. The conduct of Crunchyroll, which has yet to respond to the lawsuit or request for comment given advance notice of this article, was described as particularly egregious, given that they settled a lawsuit in 2023 over similar VPPA violations. They say specifically the lawsuit alleges that Crunchyroll violated the VPPA through its app, which embedded a software development kit, SDK, from a marketing company called Braze. Basically, that the Crunchyroll app includes the app development tools from Braze that support it for custom operations such as marketing. Braze enables companies to send notifications, in-app messages, and email campaigns. The lawsuit alleges that Crunchyroll has been disclosing information without the consent since at least 2023. That's a crazier thing because that's, again, prior to the settlement of the previous one. Again, this is all alleged. In the end, they could come back with a response saying, no, it doesn't send anything. Yes, in that app, there is this information in there. It does say that it gets this information, but that's sort of, again, things that all websites and all apps are already doing. I would argue, there's going to be very little that you're going to be able to access online that's not going to do this stuff. Because in a lot of cases, it needs that information to function. Yes, your websites, every website you go to wants to know what type of browser you're using because it needs to know what kind of code to send to you. Again, in the end, keep in mind this stuff is still at the case of being alleged. Yeah, for those that don't know, the VPPA prohibits the disclosure of video rental records containing personal identifiable information. But here is where we get into the plaintiff's evidence for Crunchyroll disclosing this information. As you see here with the actual code that they show off here, right here it says the host, which is appboy.com, which is, again, is going to be the Braze SDK, that particular thing there. And then it has where it's trying to get information, which is device ID, which would be the device you're actually on. Then down here we have the email, which is where it's pulling the email from you. And then later on, it gets into the actual episode title. And I think the second part here is the actual season, because it specifically gets into One Piece, Egghead Island, the actual episode count. That is typically the selection for that season or that segment of episodes. So I think that's what it's basically saying. Basically the episode and the season that you're in. The highlighted parts argue that Crunchyroll sent data to Braze, formerly known as AppBoy. that included details like device ID, email, and the name of the anime and episode being watched. The plaintiffs go on to argue that Crunchyroll must have known it was disclosing this information to Braze, as it is using Braze's services to send targeted notifications and marketing messages based on their specific viewing history. Now, this is where we get into sort of a uncomfortable area, in my opinion. Yes, they could specifically be using Braze to handle their marketing. We don't want to have to worry about looking at the statistics and figuring out your viewing habits and then us telling you, hey, go buy this from the Crunchyroll store because you like watching a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen. You might like some Jujutsu Kaisen stuff. Or based on people liking, Fire Force, they typically like this other show and they might want to buy the merch from this one. They could be utilizing Braze for that specific need. But what comes down to the uncomfortable part of this is that information are going outside of Crunchyroll. And specifically, what makes me feel uncomfortable is the idea of specifically them having essentially your identifiable email. So this is your email. I'm billybob@gmail.com. And I'm billybob@gmail.com likes watching these specific shows. Yes, some shows that you might not want other people knowing that you're watching. Maybe it makes you feel uncomfortable that the public would know about this information. It kind of takes away a lot of the privacy that you feel in watching shows on the platform when it seems like it's being broadcast out to somebody that you don't know, somebody that you didn't initially trust with your information. That's where I think, if, again, this is true and this is what's actually happening, I think that's where it makes me feel uncomfortable, personally. I'm not going to read the entirety of this article. I definitely welcome people to go check them out. It gets into the full details of everything, but in the end, it comes down to seeking damages of $2,500 per VPPA violation and reasonable attorney fees and other litigation costs. Like I said before, don't get excited about this. I know some people are seeing this and going, dollar signs in the eyes. Holy crap. $2,500 per violation? That would mean probably, yes, $2,500 per user that is having this happen to them. And that's typically what comes from a class action lawsuit. They don't want to just say, oh, we have this person that was, their rights were, abused, and we want to get damages for this one person. No, they're looking at Crunchyroll and their subscription amount, how many people are subscribed to Crunchyroll, and then they're going to times it by some certain amount, and they're going to fill those pockets with that. Again, don't get this mixed up. This is a law firm wanting to make a lot of money from a big corporation. They don't care about your data being stolen. Yes, there's a side of this that will end up, hopefully, it doesn't seem like it is based on the fact that this has happened once before, hopefully will push Crunchyroll to tighten up their straps here and stop giving out information that they shouldn't be giving out, again, allegedly. But in the end, all that happens is a bunch of lawyers get a bunch of money and possibly the users will get a check for $25 if they decide to say, I want the $25. But that's currently what's going on. Again, as Anime Corner has said here, they haven't had a response from Crunchyroll quite yet. I doubt they will respond. I think even back when the other lawsuit happened, in the end, all they really said was, yes, we settled, but that's not an admission of guilt. We take our privacy and all that kind of crap, blah, 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 seriously or whatever. And we all move on. But that's the news. I thought I'd get you guys fully updated on it. Again, check out animecorner.me for the full details on this whole situation. They definitely do some incredible work over there. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, y'all take care.